My phone. All right, we're live Tuesday Night Live with Eastern Outdoors Media. Thank you so much for being here. Joined by my new friend. First time we've actually talked well, I don't know about in person, virtually, I guess, other than email. Hank Forster. Hank, we'll give some people some time to get on. I just got the notification, and I'm going to share that. Looks like Josh Wilson and Brent Lemming are here. Thanks, guys. It's two loyal followers. They're here about every Tuesday. Good evening, Brent. Now, Hank, can you see the comments on your end?
I can't right now.
Look on the right side. There should be a place that says comments. If you click on that, you should be able to see the comments. Guys, thanks for being here. If you'll
Yep,
go ahead,
there we go.
let us know where you're watching from. Share this to your profile. If you run a group, share it to your group, a page, what have you. Doug Clayton, I see, is here. Guys, we got a little bit of an announcement. Give me just a second to get this shared. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Hank, while I'm sharing this here, and we've got some people on, they'll continue to pour in. Will you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself? Tell us your role at National Deer Association and a little bit about you.
Absolutely. I'm Hank Forster. I'm the director of hunting at the National Deer Association. I've been there for a number of years. Kind of oversee anything to educate or advocate for new hunters, inspire current hunters to mentor. As QDMA and now the National Deer Association really cut their teeth on education. A lot of what we do is educational resources and that kind of stuff. We have podcasts, ebooks, video series, a one-on-one online course with Calcami or huntered.com. And of course, run a lot of new hunter programs and inspire our members throughout the country to do the same.
Yeah, so some people probably aren't familiar. You're at National Deer Association, formerly QDMA. I know that's usually everyone's familiar with QDMA. So you guys have merged, pretty much the same group of folks.
Yep. So I was hired at QDMA in 2013. And a couple of years after that, we ended up hosting some national deer symposiums. And part of the outcome of those was starting the National Deer Alliance, which was a deer advocacy
Gotcha.
wing.
Okay.
And then early 2020, we decided to merge back and combine forces, creating the National Deer Association.
Gotcha. So Hank's here with us tonight, guys. I know that a lot of you, probably all of you, saw the post that was going to be Dr. Grant Woods, who has a huge following, um, one of the leaders in the deer community. He emailed me like 10 minutes ago and said there is a wildfire near his property, one of his properties. He has to go check on it, make sure it's not going to get out of control, and he's going to try to join. So that's an incentive for you guys to stay on with us, with Hank and I, right? Now, Hank's no slouch. Hank's one of the leaders in the deer community, too. He's just not out there in front like Dr. Woods is. So hang with us. Hopefully, Dr. Woods will be on, but Hank and I are going to talk about it. Hank, one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, I reached out to Kip Adams, who's done a podcast with us before, and it was kind of indirectly in response. And guys, if you've heard or seen this, let me know in the comments. I'm a big Meat Eater fan. Love Meat Eater Steve Ranella. Listen to the podcast every week. Steve's brother, Matt, who no doubt is a great sportsman, great hunter, whatnot. He had some controversial takes on, you know, how social media is adversely affecting hunting, how our public lands are overcrowded, and he even went as far as saying that if it was up to him, we would have 50% less hunters. And so I wanted to bring some guys on like you and Dr. Woods to talk about, where are we? Where do we currently stand in hunting? What's the future look like? What are those trends? Is there some truth to hunting numbers exploding, or is there a certain, in my mind, what I see, I'm 35 years old, and I feel like I'm at like the top of the young demographic. I just passed that 25 to 34. You said you're 36. So, um, but I feel like I'm still a young guy in the hunting community. And so,
I,
where are we at? So let's just start with that. What is the current state of hunting as far as numbers? Is it looking good, looking bad? What are you seeing at the national level with you?
Absolutely. So, I see some familiar names on here. I just got to say that first. I've deer hunted in Kentucky a number of times. I sit
Oh,
on the
great,
board
great.
for Scholastic 3D Archery. Actually, I'm one of those. I might be hated for this. This might not be a good thing to say, but I'm one of those lucky non-residents who drew a Kentucky cow elk tag.
Oh
So
man, listen,
I have harvested a Kentucky elk. So,
you're walking a
um,
fine line there,
yeah,
brother.
yeah, I know a lot. We got a lot of great members in Kentucky, and a lot of them are like, "Man, I've been putting in a long time," and I'll
Yep.
tell you the truth, I didn't believe it. But anyway, back to why we're here. Let's just start with the last real federal survey we had on hunting participation came out in 2016. That was the National Survey of Hunting, Fishing, and Wildlife Associated Recreation, or some, you know,
Yeah.
those names put in some different order, but somewhere around there, the feds come out with this report on the status of hunting, um, and we haven't got a new one yet. So in 2016, they said that there were 11.5 million hunters in the United States.
Okay.
8 million of them were deer hunters. Um, of those hunters, 90% of them were male, and 97% of them were Caucasian. Um, that was a continual downward trend since I believe the 1980s.
Yeah.
Um, and we've really it showed that even in the last 10 years we had gone from about 16 million to 11.5 million hunters in the United States. That's licensed buyers per year. And let's just go ahead and throw it out there that some states measure it differently. Some of them are better than others at measuring it. I mean, so we're working currently on better systems and
Yeah.
dashboards that we can better track this information almost to the minute. I mean, we're waiting on these federal reports that are years in the making. But anyway, honestly, 11.5 million current hunters in 2016. That's 4.5% of the population, 18 years of age and older, or 16 and older. So I mean, hunters are a vast minority of the population. We're segmented in one demographic of the population. We're white and we're male. And the old joke in the hunting industry or in the state agencies and stuff is we're white, male, and stale. So we're old
Mm.
white males mainly.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I've got a lot of friends my age who hunt. I've got a lot of friends my age that I've gotten into hunting,
Yeah.
but all in all, most of my hunting buddies are older than me, and that
Yep.
that's actually statistically true. The largest groups of hunters, and the largest, we call them a cohort, but the largest like generation of hunters we've ever seen in the United States were baby boomers.
Right.
So those are kids of like the World War II generation, and they were the largest group, and they didn't recruit their kids. And we can get into like why we think that's happened, and I think some of your later questions are going to get to that. But anyway, we've just seen a continual decline, and so then 2020, the pandemic happens. I'm as guilty as anyone else. I was a part of a couple of the news stories, one on Outdoor Life, like, hey, hunting participation seems to be booming. Is the
Yeah.
pandemic going to save hunting? La la la. Um, we saw some jumps in participation in hunting, but we really don't have enough data to empirically say that the pandemic caused an increase in hunting participation.
Yeah.
Um, we're actually seeing a small increase in participation going into 2019. So we were already seeing certifications at a higher clip. We actually saw a decrease in certifications during the actual March and April shutdowns of COVID because people weren't traveling,
Yeah.
and we also saw a decrease in out of state hunting participation. But as turkey season came in and maybe more northern states, we did see some real big bleeps. Like, Georgia's turkey season is like March 15th or March 20th on. And so they were in the midst of lockdown, and they saw hunting participation on public lands in Georgia increase by like 56%. And that was some of the early reports that the news was reporting. But when we got to the end of the year, we noticed that there was actually a decrease in license sales during the pandemic, probably due to people staying at home and shut down.
Yeah.
But then we saw them increase. And so there's a couple different surveys. Our deer report, our deer report, we just released the National Deer Association deer report. Um, Through that, we catalog like the State of the Union of all deer hunters, and that every year you can find it free on our website.
Right.
But our data showed a 7% increase in deer hunting license in 2020 over 2019. And the Council to Advance Hunting and Shooting Sports, some good friends of ours, they tried to compile the data with a couple partners last year to really find out, and they showed an 8% increase in hunting participation year over year. So we are experiencing some small growth periods, it looks like, but I would say it's no time to celebrate. These year of growth is coming at a time of 20 years of downward trends or something. So
Yeah. So WO, he's on here about every Tuesday. He is a baby boomer. And he said, us baby boomers didn't have tablets and cell phones, computers. We stayed in the outdoors the same now. So, what some people say, social media technology is increasing hunting numbers. I think in younger generations, we're seeing that it's decimating hunting numbers. At my full-time job as a school teacher, and I teach here in Central Kentucky. I teach in the second largest district, so it is a urban area. But I'm, in the 7 years I've been at this school, I've had maybe 5 kids come through who actually hunt, regularly. I've had one who will go with her grandpa sometimes, but it's been few and far between. But every one of them play Fortnite. Every one of them is playing Roblox or something like that. So, is WO right? Do we have just so many distractions and things taking kids away from the outdoors? Or, does that scare you as someone that, you work in the hunting industry and we want to see it boom, but it's
yeah, I
the
mean,
trends aren't looking good.
I definitely agree that there's more distractions than ever. WO probably didn't have like organized weekend athletics that took up whole weekends and parents
Yeah,
traveled
travel
for
ball.
them. I
Yeah.
mean, there's all kinds of other things that get in the way. And another, huge issue is I don't know what percentage of baby boomers grew up on farms, but a heck of a lot more of them grew up on farms than today.
Yeah.
We've urbanized as a population, and so people growing up in urban areas don't have access. Um, and I'm not the biggest like access. That I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is they're not growing up around it. They
Right.
don't. It's not that they can't travel to go hunt if that's something they really decide that's what they want to do. But if you grew up on the family farm and you have 80 acres in the backyard, you probably grew up around some guns and
There
probably
you
went
go.
out in
Yeah.
the field and shot them. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, you probably had a good opportunity or an introduction to hunting. And you don't have that uh, as much today, just because we live in urban areas. The video game thing is a funny one because we were actually at one of these symposiums that I alluded to earlier, and that started the National Deer Alliance, and they were talking about how are we going to get more people involved in hunting. And somebody brought up that the number one video game in the 1990s was Deer Hunter, and we did
Oh,
not see
really?
a bleep in hunting participation from that. So I don't know if video games create hunters, but they
Yeah.
may keep some from getting the
Let me
field.
pique some interest. Yeah. Now I was at the ATA show and there was a cool gadget, I don't know, I guess app on your phone called the AccuBow, I think it was called. So it comes with a bow and an app and you attach your phone to it. And you just pull it back and just like you're a bow hunter. It was kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe I thought about getting it for my girls, but now I know there's at least one guy on here, Mike Collins, who will take his kids' Nintendo Switch and play Big Game Hunter on there, and he'll send me screenshots of an elk he's killed because unlike you, Hank, he has never been drawn for the Kentucky elk lottery. So uh, you mentioned urbanization. That was one thing I was going to bring up with Dr. Woods. I think within the next 20, 25 years, what I saw, 90% of the population of the United States will live in urbanized areas. So we're losing habitat. We're becoming more urbanized than, like you said, WO grew up in rural areas. I'm from a rural area, live in one now, about 20 minutes from an urbanized area, So um, there's really nothing we can do about that. But I think one thing that's important, someone mentioned, with loss of hunters is also a loss of voters. And there's a lot of legislation, a lot of things that, we should probably be more involved in and be more vocal about, because, the fight may be bigger than what we even know.
Absolutely. No, I mean, being just the vast minority of the population, 11.5 million hunters, I mean, that's a liability there. That's a
Yeah.
vast minority. And the same thing goes when the majority of the population lives in urban areas. So, as much as we need to be concerned about increasing hunting participation or license buyers, and there's, we know the reasons for that, hopefully, but we also have to understand that just, public opinion and creating in these urban populations, like educating them to understanding the value of wild spaces
Hmm.
and even educating them to understand the value of hunting and what
Yeah.
we're doing. If we lose that, we've lost the game. So it's very important to at least be a part of the urban situation. And coming from a deer organization, I have to say there's a lot of good urban hunting opportunities, and
Right.
these urban populations don't know about them, and it's daunting to get involved. But even for us current hunters, they're great places to mentor new hunters. But there's so many societal trends that have been positive for hunting, and I think that's what we've seen a lot of that's happening. We can discuss modern R3 programs and kind of industry or whatever, but we've seen huge societal trends like the farm to table trends, farmers markets, people caring about where their food comes from,
Yeah.
um, shows like Meat Eater and their success. How many baby, I mean, not baby boomers, but there seems to be like a back to the farm trend that's popular, at least on Instagram or social media.
Yeah. It seems
But
that way. Yeah.
the pandemic, I think, brought self-reliance back into people's brains. We got a lot of feedback from, people that wanted to learn to hunt. It became about self-reliance and
Yeah.
providing for their families. They saw the issues with the, industrial meat, complex or whatever. But there's all these trends that have happened that bode well for hunting. I mean, people are buying organic. I mean, it's all these things that, like, when you really get down to it, a lot of those desires overlap. And so it's about talking to non-hunters about that, and
Yeah.
it's about learning how to talk about hunting. I think that's one of the biggest issues we have as hunters is we've become insular as a group, and we think that people don't approve of what we do, but it's actually not the case. So we've recorded the highest, societal acceptance rates of hunting or approval rates of hunting than we've ever seen in the last decade or so. 82% of Americans approve of hunting deer and turkey for food. When you get into like
Wow.
black
Yeah.
bear, yeah, yeah. So what we do is the approval is huge. Like it's the 10%, maybe say there's like 10% of the population that really hunts or comes from a hunting culture, understands it, and maybe there's 10% of the population that is an anti-hunter, but it's those 80% in between that are going to decide the future for us. And really at 80-90% of those are with us, but it's about talking to them. It's about talking about what you do in a responsible method. But all in all, people approve of hunting, and when we talk to groups of hunters, you often get this response. And I was surprised to hear you talking about your students. But when we talk about current hunters, like everybody I know hunts, and
Yeah.
I think that we like grew up as hunters, and that's what makes hunting so awesome, and that's what you have to create for new hunters is this community and this camaraderie that we've found in hunting, and these communities that we've created. But at the end of the day, um, we don't share that with other people, and there's millions of Americans who are interested in learning to hunt.
So if 82% of folks in America approve of hunting for food.
Yeah,
Um,
food. If food is an important question, if you throw
yeah.
trophy in front of it, it
Oh,
plummets. And even if like elk have you have to understand, and I saw with my grandmother. My grandmother wasn't a hunter. I would kind of categorize her as an anti-hunter. But when the
yeah,
turkeys got into her backyard and got into her garden, the turkeys were fair game.
yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's happened is these turkeys and deer have moved into our neighborhoods, and so we just take them for granted. And so I don't think they're value is the wrong word, but I'll tell you, when you ask for public approval rates of hunting for elk for food, it goes down.
Mm.
Bears, people love teddy bears, it goes down. And that's
I
why
know.
we're dealing with these issues in New Jersey and Washington state with
Yeah,
bears. There is a different societal acceptance rate of hunting them, and it's misguided. I mean, it's
it is.
emotional.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
emotional, but it's true. It when we poll, we see it.
we an example of this on a smaller scale is I live outside. I live next to a subdivision. We have our own place, but we live outside of a subdivision, and they have a little Facebook group that we're in. So in case there's some weird guys lurking around or something, the dog gets lost, and they've been posting lately of coyotes being nearby or in their backyard, and when I post in there, like, hey, I know some guys that can take care of those for you. They can come trap, they can go come coyote hunt on the farm behind, whatever. They're all for it because they don't want their pets interrupted. They don't want, their kids outside playing and whatnot. Like you said, your grandmother. But, when if 82% approve of hunting for food, at least for deer and turkey, when you get into gun issues, and that's not what this is about. So I don't want to deep, I mean, Lord, we could spend a whole week on that. Um, are you saying that's like exclusive? Like they don't want gun ownership, but if you have guns for hunting, that's okay. Like, how do those two reconcile?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah,
but I do believe, and this is totally my opinion.
yeah,
But I think the mindset of the gun issues has bled into the mindset of hunters, and that's why we perceive what we do to be less approved.
oh,
Because a
okay,
couple of the
gotcha.
comments here were like, "I would have never thought it was that high," and I
Right,
think
yeah,
people find that shocking. And I do think a little bit of that is, we just think that people don't approve of what we do, and I think some of it is that Second Amendment fight. And I'm not weighing in one way or the other. I'm staying out of
it's
that
best
here.
not to. Yeah,
I'm just
not for
saying
that's
that I
not a
think that
discussion for tonight.
mindset of like that there, has bled into it, and so we don't talk to hunting about not with non-hunters. But the recent research, and I believe this. I mean, I can attest to it just in my experiences. Um, but the recent research says that there may be as many as just under 25 million, 24.7 million Americans who are interested in going hunting. They
Yeah,
would answer a
wow,
survey saying that they plan to or would like to go hunting in the future. I think there's so many, and we walk by them every day and we don't realize it. I'm telling you, I walked by them in the QDMA office for years. Um, I'll tell you a story in a minute, but we walk by these people every day, and they're interested in hunting, but they're not entertaining the idea of it. It's just perceived as so daunting by them that they're just not thinking that they can do it. And I'll be the one here that I believe most barriers to entry of hunting are perceived and not real. I think that if you
that's
want to
great.
do it, you can do it. There's 8 million Americans who deer hunt currently. I really believe that if there's a will, there's a way. I'm not one that's like, oh, it's so hard to do this. It's about building confidence. It's about building someone's confidence to where they realize that it's something attainable to them. And
Yeah,
I'm the one on the side of the fence that's saying that this is easily attainable for anyone who wants to do it.
yeah.
Um,
That's something that, and this is not something that we wrote out we were going to talk about, but we should not let, and a lot of folks here are probably in rural areas where gun issues aren't an issue. But if we're not in those areas and we have friends who may be not comfortable around guns, we shouldn't let that issue hold us back from saying, hey, you know what, I know you're not comfortable around guns, but what if I introduced you to deer hunting? You could just tag along with me, we can set in the blind, whatnot. I've had several people who have never hunted, never. Let's see. Dr. Woods just emailed me. I'll reply to him just say, but I've had tons of people who's never hunted, never been in the outdoors. Just be curious, maybe they'll never try, but they're just curious on, you know, you deer hunt, how did you get started? What's that like? And have questions about that. So I think that's a great point. I was trying to look here. Let's look at our questions. I know you mentioned, people aren't as anti-hunting as maybe we perceive them to be. Um, excuse me. So, one thing we talked about is social media, maybe the adverse effect that it has on hunting, where people just want to kill to be seen, or they want to kill for an antler size or something like that. But also the positive effects it has on hunting. So, what do you think as far as reaching that? I think you said 27 million people who are willing to go
Yeah.
hunting. What can we do better as sportsmen in stewarding our social media presence to reach those folks? And while you're answering, I
Yeah.
want to email Dr. Grant.
Yeah.
Dr. Wood.
Go for it. Couple of things to that. I mean, yeah, what I'm asking everybody to do here is to share their story, share their passion and their knowledge for hunting. And you might be surprised at how many people around you are interested in that. But there can be negative consequences to it. So it's sharing in a responsible way, just as we were discussing about like public approvals. Um, it's like search engine optimization, I guess, in a way. Like if I know this is tasteful to the general public, but this isn't, we're going to be better off if you share that's tasteful versus not. So social media is tough because it's a forum, and
It
and
is.
I'm sure Dr. Woods could really attest to this, being the social media mogul and everything that he is. I mean, you don't get to steer social media, and so that's a good thing and a bad thing. But at the same time, social media is curated to the viewer, so I don't know how much of what we're sharing is really going to people that don't want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But it has been a huge opportunity to show our peer groups what we do,
Yeah.
and it's what I don't think we're doing around the boardroom table or whatever. And just I'll tell you that story real quick that I alluded to. The first time, so we started a program called Field to Fork, an adult learn to hunt program that was food focused in Athens, Georgia, in 2016. Just as like a, hey, let's try this. Let's set up a table at the farmers market, offer venison samples, and see if we can sign up people who want to
Oh, that's a
learn
great
to
idea.
hunt. And we got a huge reception. We had a waiting list in one market. I mean, and all kinds of different people, and it grew from there. Last year we had 43 programs in 17 states, and actually, a lot of it came with the help of Kentucky. But where I'm going with this is the first time we ever posted a photo of what we did on social media, a girl commented and said, "Hey, is there a program like this where I live?" And she
The
was,
Field to Fork program.
yeah,
Right.
and this was just a photo of the farmers market booth. And I clicked on her Facebook profile to see where she was, and she was in New Hampshire, and she was an employee of Ruger Firearms.
Mm.
She shot small bore air rifle for MIT for college.
Wow.
Knew all about guns, was an engineer at a gun company, and still wanted to learn how to deer hunt, and just didn't know how to get started. Was looking for somebody to take her, and we realized that there were 15 people at Ruger that wanted to learn to deer hunt. 15 employees of Ruger, and so we hosted a program for 15 employees of Ruger and 15 employees of Sig Sauer that were close to each other, for their employees to learn to deer hunt. And we did the same thing for QDMA. This year we did one for Vortex, American Outdoor Brands. We've done them for Daniel Defense. But I
Mm.
mean, we're walking by colleagues every day in the hunting industry that want to learn to hunt,
Yeah.
and then just
This is
expand
their
out from
job.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, we just take it for granted that everybody wants to, does it, or whatnot. We're walking by them, but I'm telling you, they're
Hmm.
in our industry, and they're everywhere else that we exist. We walk by them
Yeah.
every day.
Dr. Woods, thanks for being here. I'm glad the fire wasn't more than it needed to be.
Just the Forest Service doing a little habitat work.
There you go. Well, you can. I'm sure you can accept that. Happy about that. So,
Sure.
uh,
Good to see you,
I-
Grant.
Good to see you, man.
I appreciate you being here. We talked about several different things. Kind of, just having a conversation. People in the comments are asking questions and commenting. But what we just talked about, which you probably know better than all of us, is using social media in a positive way to educate, which is something Hank's really hammered on, and to promote hunting in a positive way. One thing, Hank, I'll kind of piggyback on is we've tried to tell people, the way, and I'm sure Dr. Woods, you can talk about this. The way we run our page, you have to be careful on Facebook what you say and what you show, because you can get shut down quickly. And also, we've had things posted that were not gruesome or over the top, but there are groups that we've had infiltrate, if you will, our page and just go to town in the comments on, well, that animal is too beautiful to kill, or something like that. And so we try to tell people that share stories with us or things like that, like, we need to present this in a way where an anti-hunter, or we don't give people a reason to be an anti-hunter, I guess is a good way of saying it. So, Dr. Woods, can you just kind of hit on how you've been able, you have a huge following, people love you. I mean, that's why people are here tonight, for you, not for me and Hank. So I'm just kidding, Hank. I'm just kidding.
I know
But could
better
you
than
kind
that. I've known Hank a long time.
of Hank's a good guy. We've talked for 30 minutes now, and I'm enjoying it. But could you talk about how you've used social media to educate, to enhance hunting and land management, and you've made a career of it, and that's a big part of what you do.
Guys, I don't know if I know the answer or not. We've had a couple of YouTube videos censored that weren't gruesome, as you said, and we've had a
Yeah.
couple of posts they put up the violent content. They weren't bloody, rolling around shots or something like that. I think what we're maybe seeing, and other people say this too, there's 10% on, let's call it the right, and I'm not being political here, and 10% on the left. There's 10% anti-hunters that no matter what we do, they're going to find something. We get a negative comment on every post. Like I was just working in Alabama over the weekend, and I found a skull in the timber, of a wildlife animal. I'm not giving it away because we're still asking questions out there. It was pretty common. They're around where everyone lives, and I just posted, hey, what skull is this? And man,
I saw that. Yeah.
It's amazing what people come up with. And then there's 10% on left that, well, you got, why are you on this page if you're an anti blah, blah, blah. And I don't know. It's a fantasy of mine. I would hope we could come together and respect each other and be respectful. And we try, obviously, for the good of everyone, to monitor what we post, make sure it's honest, make sure it's appropriate. Don't just use clickbait. There's some people that have, groups or whatever that do the clickbait posts, biggest buck ever killed. And then it turns out it's the biggest buck ever killed in the northwest corner of a Stuff Mart parking lot or something like that. Just try to be honest and tasteful. And I think that'll go a long ways. And I think, man, Hank's group has done such an awesome job with their program and introducing people. That's a landmark program that we all ought to get behind.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't, well, Hank, you mentioned organic, people buying organic. You can't get any more organic than fresh venison from the woods. I mean, you can't.
Well, we can't certify it. I got dinged on that one time, but it's
okay.
close.
Well,
yeah.
So unofficially,
there's some great research out now, guys. I'll be glad, offline share a link with y'all, but showing that off of farms that are managed better, it's commonly called regenerative ag. We call it the release process and food plots, or good TSI, good timber management, where there's a big diversity of plants that aren't impacted by synthetic fertilizer or herbicide or whatever. And they produce a lot of vitamins and other agents that are really beneficial for the health. Yeah. And so that's what I've told my family and friends, that, man, when we harvested deer out here on the back 40, and maybe we burned there last year, or, we did some TSI or whatever, and it's eating whatever plants were in the soil. They're coming up ragweed, briars, whatever. That meat is packed with nutrients, way more than anything that grew in a confinement situation or standard agricultural practice these days. It's not like the buffalo roaming the prairie. And And then I'd encourage people to read. There's some great books. I've read several. Seems like every state had a noted explorer. Everything goes to Lewis and Clark, and they were awesome. But from Daniel Boone and East Literally, he was a really good writer. His spelling was about like mine, but he's a good writer.
His spelling was
Read
bad.
his journal, or you can actually listen to it on YouTube. Or where I live, it was a guy named Schoolcroft. He's one of the first literate guys to come through. A few trappers hit him, and one thing I noted, he took a little journal, and every morning he'd just find a cave or a stump hole or something to sleep in. He'd get in the morning and say, this would be in December, and say 2 inches of snow on the ground and smoke. And this wasn't Native American fires. This was a big forest fire type smoke. So burning year round, different times a year, causing different plants to grow. And that nutrient base that comes from that produces really healthy critters. And when we consume meat from those critters, we get some of the benefits of that because they've, of course, included that in their system. So anyway,
Right.
I just think there's so many positives out there that we can introduce people to. Hunting is the most natural, hunter-gatherer is the most natural activity. And I think it helps us, with my family anyway, understand life and death and seasons and drought and big impacts of drought. Not, oh my gosh, I don't need to mow the yard this week, but the bigger scale impacts. So I just think hunting is such an awesome way to introduce people to an activity that allows you to make better choices in your personal life.
Absolutely. Guys, if you're watching here, we appreciate you. I know we still have people coming on. We had some people leave after they saw that Dr. Woods wasn't here, and I told them to hang out. So if you'll share this, tag a buddy that is wanting to tune in tonight. One thing that Hank and I hit on already, and I want to get your thoughts on this, was the urbanization. I mentioned in the email we talked about 90% of people in the United States will be living in cities in the next 20 years. And so, Hank talked about part of that is educating. There's opportunities in those areas, and what can we do? So, but that is definitely a threat. What are some things, you've been doing this longer than we have. What are some things that you see, as a threat to hunting, to the population of hunters that we have, and some things that we really need to be aware about? We may have lost him.
I think it's pretty simple. It's just
here he is. There you
go. Sorry, dog just come in. Sorry about that, y'all.
No, you're good.
It's a disconnect because sometimes, even with me, like with I'm jumping in airports or traveling, going and doing, and I kind of get disconnected from the land, and I just feel so good when I get back out, and whether I'm hunting or shed hunting or planting a food plot with an over the shoulder seed spreader, whatever I'm doing. Again, I think that lessons you learn from being outside, and when people only get their intake or produce from a store, and they walk on concrete 99% of the time or carpet or something, there's just a disconnect. So I think our real mission isn't, gosh, all these folks are living in an urban situation or whatever. Our mission is to just share how great it is to be outside. I call it creation, and be involved in wildlife, or if you don't like taking hunting, that's certainly okay, but wildflowers and what causes wildflowers to grow, and how can we manage the habitat in such a way it benefits a multitude of species, pollinators, all these things all go back to mismanagement somehow.
Yeah.
And we know we can feed the world through wildlife and regenerative ag, and these practices actually heal the soil, take carbon out of the air, do all these really beneficial things. I like to share when I'm speaking with maybe people that are a little disconnected. Carbon is black. Most people recognize that. And really healthy soil is always considered black. And unhealthy soil is, a light brown or chalky white or something. Well, that's literally because carbon is gone.
Yeah.
And living roots take carbon out of the air, out of a plant, and pump it back in the soil. This is real simple, but it got missed somehow in our 7th grade biology class or something. They were too worried about, some other subject or something. So I think if we all in the industry and other industries can join together and bridge that disconnect, hiking programs, bird watching, it's a natural, I believe, for people to say, oh, well, that meat on that land producing that environment is probably more healthy.
Yeah.
And I want to be part of consuming that, whether my family or I get part of it, or I learn how to prepare it. I just think it all comes together. And sometimes we make a mistake of jumping this gap. That's why I think Hank's program is so wonderful of going, boy, you're here on the concrete. Let me slam a 30-out 60 and take you hunting. And we know for a fact that a lot of the youth programs, as wonderful as they are, have resulted in retention. You take a 6-year-old kid, hey, don't play soccer this weekend or whatever sport it is, I guess football or whatever, and let's go hunt for one weekend. Hope you had a good time, girl. Had a good time, son. See you later. Well, that did not probably recruit a hunter. It takes mentorship and long-term relationships, and so I think that's again all part of this disconnect, or us as an industry serving to help connect.
Hank, in what ways that you mentioned Field and Fork, or are there other ways that NDA or organizations you're aware of are working, like Dr. Grant said, Dr. Woods said, whether it's hiking, introduction just to biology of the land, whatever? Are there ways that you're finding that we can connect non-hunters to the outdoors as a conduit to get them finally afield?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of programs at play that are doing exactly that. They're kind of introductory programs. We've partnered with many that are kind of cropping up on national wildlife refuges and stuff, that are starting with fishing and wildlife photography and bird watching and archery, and then they're approaching deer hunting on these refuges to manage the population. So it's been a really cool progression to see. Um, I will hit on a couple things that said though. I mean, while we can't certify organic, I mean, a lot of these new hunters are interested in local and sustainable foods, and that's really what they're keying in on. And these
Yeah.
deer are in our backyards, and kind of like a kind of a broadside back to this overpopulated Western public land hunter mindset is most of these new hunters are not interested in getting in their car or truck and driving across the United States to go
Yeah.
find an elk. They're interested in things in their backyard, and within a short period of their time. The other thing then that I find so funny that we can all kind of connect on is we talk to these new hunters, and they talk about tradition, and that they want to start a tradition, this hunting tradition, this is found within them. And it's funny because you would think that someone who didn't do something wouldn't have tradition, but time and time again we talk to these new hunters, and they talk about their clock was ticking to start this tradition for their family,
Yeah.
something to share with their family. So I always find it odd, but I do think that most of us have this natural hunter mentality born inside of us, and I think most of us are probably just disconnected from it. But I often tell people I've got a bird dog in the other room, and I read a book that was What Not to Do to Train Your Bird Dog, and the whole premise is that he was born a hunter. Only thing you can do is mess this up. And
Yeah.
I think that we're just taken away from the family farm and wild spaces, and we've lost that. But I think there's a lot of Americans that want to get back to it.
Yeah. I think I was trying to get through. A lot of people have mentioned that, like Brent just said here, and I know we mentioned access earlier, but, a lot of folks before had access to hunt properties and whatnot. And then, a big complaint that we've seen from a lot of folks is, you know, outfitters leasing has driven things up so high that you can't do it. But, going back to what you said, if you're introducing a new hunter or a person that's new to hunting, they're happy with just going to their backyard, going to public land, starting small. Some of us, for people that's done this a long time, they have, envisioned big game or Western hunting. That's not the vision for every person, especially new hunters. So I think that's important there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
found that. Go ahead. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Grant.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say we found
There's
time and time again that a double ladder stand on 5 acres in an urban woodlot is the furthest into nature that many new hunters have been,
There
and
you go. Yeah.
you can't take what your desires and wishes for your hunts and put them in their head.
Yeah. Dr. Woods.
Yeah, exactly what Hank said. I mean, it's basic. it seems like we would get this. We don't take a Mighty Mike football player and toss him out on a senior line the first day, kind of the
Right.
equivalent of a
Yeah.
big Western hunt or something like that. And man, just the fundamentals and vitals and meat preparation. It should always, in my mind, tie back to the meat, tie back to the benefit, tie back to the experience.
There you
And
go.
the actual harvest should be a minute part of this. It's just a necessity. And I think it was I was in grad school and I read this book, but Jose Ortega, I think, wrote, a famous Spanish scholar that, and I'm going to butcher this. Hank's shaking, so he'll probably correct me on it. But I don't, I kill so I get to hunt was the gist of it. That's just why I'm out there. And if I just have a camera in my hand, I probably don't get the whole experience. But I know for me, I mean, man, I'm not that successful. I hunt a whole lot and harvest just a little. So it's the days and seeing the blue jays and listening to the squirrels,
Yeah.
and, all those things, and cold and hot and ticks, and all those things go together. So pulling it down again, and I've yet to see a kid that I've been around, a few programs I've been involved with, that when that bobber went underwater didn't get all excited. That first tug
Oh
on the
yeah.
bobber, man,
Absolutely.
and I'm still a bobber fisherman myself. I kind of say it with a point of pride, I mean, I'm in a big bluegill and some, some cornbread and a little butter and an egg, and I'm good to go. So
Can't beat it.
yeah, and I think there was some research at some time past that showed that X% of hunters all started through fishing. I think that's our responsive management group. And so let's, again, don't think we have to start directly on hunting to create a hunter. Bobbers and Zebco fishing poles work great.
Absolutely. This is I think a good question here. That's Brent says, in your opinion, what age should a kid first get behind a weapon and harvest an animal? And I think, or he says his son is turning 10. They're going to go turkey hunting in April. But I think I know a lot of guys my age want to kind of push their kids out there, make them do it. But in your mind, in your experience, what's the proper way to approach that?
As an older father, and I have children in college or just about out of college right now, I think it's real important to evaluate each child and your relationship with them. There may be some 5-year-olds that are gung ho to go set with
Yeah,
dad. When I was 6, I
agree.
remember one of my favorite hunts of my life. My dad got drawn on a public land hunt with muzzleloaders way back in the day, and I got to carry the ramrod. It was a true muzzleloader, cap and ball and whatnot. And
Yeah,
Dad always told the story I'd swing that ramrod around so much shooting blackbirds in the trees that there was no chance he was going to see a deer. And I think that kind of patience probably helped me a deer hunter. And then I will share with you my youngest daughter, Ray, which, if you want to know how much deer impacts my family, RAE is Hebrew for doe. And
there
my
you go.
oldest daughter is Raleigh, which is dweller by the deer meadow. So yeah, impacts it a
You
little
put a
bit.
lot of thought into that.
Yeah. But Ray, I remember when she's probably 9 or 10, something like that. She matured quickly, and she harvested her first deer at 6 and handled it, and it was all great, and it was all good. But we were down in the bottom here, and boy, it was Missouri's youth season. Usually it's Halloween weekend. I never understood a state agency doing that, but anyway, because it makes people make a choice, right? And I'd ask her, "Hey, honey, do you want to go to grandma's, go trick or treating? We live out in the country; it's a long walk to
Yeah.
trick or treat around here.
Right.
Or,
Yeah.
or do you want to go deer hunting? No, I want to go deer hunting." And I remember asking her, "Now, is that because Daddy wants to go, or no, I want to go deer hunting?" And we get down there and all set up. Man, it's cold. It is right, man. I'm all excited. About 2 minutes in it, "Daddy, what time is it?" And I told her. And about 3 minutes in it, "Daddy, what time is it?" And I told her.
Yeah.
And the next time she asked me what time, I said, "You'd really rather go trick or treating, wouldn't you?" And she, "Yes." Man, we packed up that 5-gallon bucket. I would take her dolls and candy and everything, 5-gallon bucket. We packed that baby up and went to Granny's right then, because I did not want hunting to be a
Right.
bad relationship with her. And now today, she'll come home from college to hunt. So I
That's
think
great.
you can't force it. Some kids take to it more than others. And let's think about one last thing while I'm on my little pedestal here. But
Go for it.
even churches don't say, "Now, kids, sit down, shut up, and be quiet for 3 hours straight."
Right.
Deer hunting is probably not the best way to start a child hunting. It's kind of boring. Adults kind of get it. Maybe we like the more relaxed approach, but man, and plinking with a BB gun, squirrel hunting, fishing, things you can talk, socialize, move, do. It's probably a much better way to start young children hunting than son, hold my 7 mag here and sit quiet for 3 hours. There's just a lot better way to do that.
Don't step on a leaf. Yeah, that kind of thing. Part of that with your family, and then part of it too, what I was going to relate this to is if someone who's never been hunting wants to go with me, I would almost rather them not go with me alone, but to go with me when I'm going with a group or we're having deer camp, because I think that camaraderie, that's my favorite part of hunting is of course I enjoy being out there by myself. I love it. I love the peace and quiet. I love just being able to think to yourself. But when you can come back and you have deer camp, you're around a campfire, you're hanging out with your buddies, I go with my brother a lot. That's just, to me, that's better than actually harvesting an animal. That time, that's really the most memories you get is hanging out with your friends. So, I think that's something we've kind of gotten away from. I think it was Patrick Durkin, who is an outdoors writer. I've had him on the show before, and he wrote a story last year maybe about how, deer camp is almost obsolete. So I think the camaraderie and brother and sisterhood, if you will, of hunting is something that is vital and important to growing the sport.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, so social media, we need a trophy, a grip and grin, or
right,
showing 5 minutes of my iPhone video clip or something. And you can't really communicate that camaraderie, or sometimes you shouldn't because the jokes that are being told or the quiet moments or whatever. So,
yeah.
But the camaraderie truly is a big part of the take home. That's medicinal and healing for us to bond with other people and have trust and a social experience that's positive and affirming. Hey, I'll help you, you help me. I think those affirming things are just so important.
Absolutely. Hank, do you see, do you guys do any events that try to grow, make that connection among people groups, I guess, demographics?
Well, I think that's the premise of QDMA and now the NDA is, it was about bringing hunters together to share, their passion, knowledge, that kind of stuff. But, the same subject with new hunters. So, we've tried to figure out, what makes a new hunter. And I told you earlier, I believe it's confidence. But, ultimately a hunter is someone who self-identifies as one that, I'm a hunter and I can do this. And we build their confidence to make that decision, a switch inside their own head. But it's that community and camaraderie that push them to continue. We call it social support, but it's that same, that's why we're hunters today. It's that community and camaraderie we found in it. And I think that's a huge disconnect from the non-hunters. They don't understand, the deer camp community.
Yeah.
They also just don't understand what we're doing out there. And time again, even from these, new hunters that we're taking afield, one thing I've realized that the most overlooked thing that we think to tell a new hunter about is what to expect after they take the shot. For some reason, as hunters, we're like, oh, we know what happens then. And we don't even think about explaining to them that a deer could run off, or it might not. But for some reason, as hunters and current hunters, we always overlook that. But, we hear time and time again, oh, I thought you got a deer every time you went out. I don't hear that as much from the people we're taking afield, but I hear that from my peers and parents and that kind of stuff. Well, oh, I figured you got a deer every time you went out, or, so they just don't understand how much time and passion and that municipal, that connection with nature that we have. And that's really what we're keying in on. But between that and the community and camaraderie, that's really why we're all hunters. It's not those grip and grins.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. They see the grip and grin, but they didn't see the 25 sits that you put in to make that happen. So we got about 5 minutes left. I think we've had, we've not hit maybe all the questions that we had laid out, but I think we've hit on most, and we've hit some issues here. Can we take 5 minutes? Anyone watching, if they have any questions for you guys, and answer those real quick. Get some of those in. If you have questions in the comments, go ahead. Answer those. I know we had some about Dr. Woods. I had someone message me and say, hey, I can't join the live. I watched the replay. Could you ask him about predator management, how important predator management is on property? So turkey season's coming up. Could you just highlight maybe some things you do or some research that shows how managing predators can affect your wildlife population?
So I'll share with y'all, I'm 60 years old, and predators were taught when I was in school as a predator. They,
Yeah.
they kill prey, and there's a balance. And then somewhere along the way, uh, predators become the big brown furry things with eyes that were all good. Like, for example,
Yeah.
I was raised in school to identify killer whales. And I think Disney started calling them orcas. They're the same critters, folks, and they're still built to kill things. So we have published a lot about this. Raccoon populations in most states that do any kind of scent work surveys is an all-time high. Missouri happens to do a pretty good job of that, not controlling them, but a good job of monitoring their populations through bow hunter observation surveys and actual scent stations where they stick a stick in the ground, put lime or sand around it, put a scent out there and look for tracks every day and wipe them down and look again the next day.
Gotcha.
So the coon population's doing this. No surprise, we fragmented habitat, which is good for raccoons and several predators. And the number of trapping licenses and sales in Missouri have plummeted. And again, when I was in high school, a coon was $40 on the body. You were on a date and it wasn't smashed by both semi tires. You stopped, picked it up, threw it in the back of your car. That paid for like 5 more dates, man. And now, literally this year, folks, this year there are 4, and most coons took to fur auction will not sell. There's more than 4 million coon hides in cold storage in America right now, waiting for prices to go up. So we got an abundance of predators out there, and we're just looking. I advocate trapping. It's a great way to learn. You know, be quiet. You're reading signs on things. But we need to find a balance between predator and prey populations, and that balance is where both populations are doing well, sustaining populations, growing, whatever the management goal is. It's not wipe one out or wipe the other one out. There's a balance, and that's what we do as managers. We try to find a balance. So we do trap, and I'm proud to announce, through maybe a little bit of encouragement, the MDC, Missouri Primary Conservation, is going to expand our trapping season next year by a couple of months to give us more days, because the research is really clear on deer, on ducks, on quail, on all these game species that are, some of them are struggling, deer aren't struggling, some of these species are struggling, is if you remove predators right before and during the fawning or nesting season, you have a much higher survival rate. This is refereed publications, replicated by many researchers, but somehow nowadays it's being shoved under the carpet. And that makes me angry. This was valid research, good scientific design, even back to Dr. Benson over 30 years ago in the Welder Wildlife Area in Texas, real famous study. So let's don't forget that there's a balanced predator and prey. And because, you know, after Columbus got here and we started kind of cutting trees and doing things that whatever natural was going on, we've changed the balance, and we have to step in and help correct that balance.
Yeah, we had a couple of weeks ago, we had Alan Probst from North American Hunter on, and he gave some excellent, trapping's just not, a lot of people don't do that anymore, and he gave some excellent ideas on how to start and what to do, and great having him on. We said we're going to make, I told him this, and he said we should trademark. We're going to get red hats that say "Make trapping great again." And maybe people will start. I don't know. Maybe that'll, jumpstart some trapping. We have a question here. It says, "What do you think about?" It says Dr. Woods, but Hank, I'm going to let you take this since Dr. Woods just answered. What do you think about only seeing the highlights of hunting on social media and not showing the actual hunt? And before you answer, I will say, personally, I feel like that we've seen a shift in just the kill shots to people actually telling the stories with folks like Meat Eater, the hunting public. We like to see from beginning to end. So what's your take on that? Both of you can weigh in, or one of you can take it.
I think the stories have changed a little bit, or the content that I see on social media. I still just think it's hard to show that to a non-hunter. It's just it's something that it's hard to experience from the outside. But I think we're doing a good job, and I think it's a huge step to growing interest in hunting from non-hunting groups. And the other thing that we have to take into account is, Netflix and YouTube and all these other avenues that we can get this content into people's living rooms that would have never gone to Sportsman Channel or gone to outdoorlife.com or whatever. But now that with Netflix and YouTube, I mean, we're getting quality hunting content in front of completely non-hunting audiences. And I guarantee you this week, if you turn on, I mean, I don't know what it's like to own a Netflix account for a non-hunter, but I imagine that Meat Eater is trending, as the top shows on Netflix, even to a
Yeah, it was the
non-hunter.
other day. Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is there's access and a portal to seeing hunting and seeing it in a positive and responsible light that's being piped into living rooms. And we've never seen anything like that before.
And we just need to continue that positive portrayal. That's a hard word to say, of hunting. So, all right, guys, it's 10 o'clock. I know that we had some other questions. I want to respect Hank and Dr. Woods' time. Can you real quick, Dr. Woods, tell everybody how to find you if they're not following you already? You're on Facebook, YouTube. How can they see some of your content?
Yeah, just whatever platform you use, just search for Growing Deer. You'll find us out there. And appreciate you allowing me to come in. Again, I apologize for being a little late here. Just a lot of smoke in the air around here.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You got a lot to protect there. Hank, as far as National Deer Association, what are some resources or where can they find? I know you mentioned the annual deer report that you guys put out. What are some things you can plug there for you guys?
Yeah, go to deerassociation.com or search for it on all the social media apps. But you can find my information there as well if you got any further questions. But deerassociation.com.
All right, guys. Well, everyone watching, thanks for being here. If you're watching the replay, feel free to comment. We'll try to get back to you when we can. Hank, Dr. Woods, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And maybe down the road we can have you guys back on, maybe talk some land management or deer numbers or something like that. How about that?
Thanks for having me.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Everybody have a great night. And hopefully Kentucky's winning. I don't know. I'm going to go check the score real quick. All right. Have a good one. See you guys.
Thanks.